think we're ready to get started again. Good morning, everyone. My name is Laurie Barnett Levine, and I am the CEO of Mental Health America of Southwestern Pennsylvania. I also have the honor of being the vice chair of the Ray of Hope Task Force. Each year, I have the honor of welcoming everyone to the Ray of Hope Walk. Last year, who would have ever thought that this year we would be having a virtual event? In this season of change, everything feels different. This event has really been so special because as we mourn the loss of many, we come together to support each other and spread a message of love and hope. This event helps us to maintain a sense of connectivity, to know that we are not alone. We were aware of just how fragile life is long before COVID-19. We know that tomorrow is not guaranteed. Sometimes the worst of times brings out the very best in people. Today is one of those times. So I want to take this opportunity to thank the wonderful group of volunteers for the Ray of Hope who helped to create this special day. I also want to thank Sue Soltis and the Westmoreland Intermediate Unit. Without their help, we would not be having this virtual event. By the way, this event is being recorded, and the link for the slides will be sent after the event. There will be no confidential information released, for example, the names of the participants or who asked what question after the event. At this time, I'm going to read the names of those whose lives were lost to suicide. Those we lost live on in all of us, those who love them. So you will see some slides with the names of people who have been lost, and I will read their names. I apologize in advance, as I do every year, if I mispronounce the names. And at the end, there'll be an opportunity for you to add, I guess, in the chat of the names of additional people that you would like to see us announce. The first name is Tom Kuiper. Steve Tomko. Scott Fritsch. Patty Taylor Durney. Kevin Cowan. Ken Newcomer. Jenkins. Piper. Carla McWilliams. Jamie Economo. Natalie Bodner. Keegan Schultz. Heidi Yar Sultanov. Wilma Yar. Greg Coral. William Mize. Jason Gangaware. George Beamy. Grant Taylor. Douglas Winkler. Donald Allen Anker. Derek Ankney. Derek Shimko. Dana. Anthony Meladandri. Ben Vale. Al DeTore Sr. Richard Vankelik. Amy Hollis. Michelle Hollis. John Stouffer. Michael Cunningham. Jacob Polo. Are there any other names? I'm looking in the chat to see if there are any other names, and I don't see any. At this time, oh, I'm sorry, I see another name. Olivia Progel. Carl Sellner.
Lori, there's another one too above that.
Oh, thank you. Maggie Campbell. Kim Magnus. I don't see any other names. Having seen no other names, at this time, I would like to introduce our stories of hope. And the first person who is going to speak, I believe, is Rachel Cunningham. Rachel, do you want to speak and introduce yourself?
Hi, thanks, Lori. Guess it would help to take myself off mute. I'm Rachel Cunningham. I'm the Director of Development at Mental Health America of Southwestern PA, and I'm also the coordinator of Fray of Hope. I am a suicide loss survivor. I lost my husband to suicide about 4 years ago. Actually, it's going on about 4.5 years ago. And I wanted to share with you today a little bit about my journey and also my children's journey from what we experienced that night 4.5 years ago to today. So our story starts out on April 4th, 2016, which was a night that I will never forget. Then again, I mean, how could I forget it? It's a night that changed my life. That's the night that my husband and the father of my 2 young sons died by suicide. And suicide is an interesting concept. It's something that society has made somewhat of a dirty word. It's something that people know exists, but can't bring themselves to say. It's something that people push into the shadows. It's something that people think is so bad, but but the truth is that these people are in so much mental anguish, they would rather take their own life than live, but people can't speak of it. So the problem with this way of thinking is that while we're busy hiding these issues in the shadows, people are dying, and these are real people. These aren't hypothetical people. These are brothers, sisters, husbands, wives, mothers, fathers, and even children. And this silence, it comes with deadly consequences. I don't remember what I was wearing or what the weather was the night that Mike died. In fact, I don't remember much at all about that night, but I do remember vaguely sitting on the couch in my home as the police and the coroner were there, and they were asking me endless questions about my husband's mental state before the suicide. I answered as best as I could, but I kept fixating on the blood that was on my hands, left from checking for a pulse. Even as I washed my hands and watched the blood go down the drain, I still had an overwhelming sense of guilt that there was something more that I could have done. How could I have missed the signs that there was something so wrong that he would have taken his own life? What if I had gotten up earlier during the night? What if I would have intervened somehow? The what ifs were overwhelming. I really wish I could tell you that night began my journey to self-healing, but in reality, the process actually took about 2 years to begin. I was so busy making sure that everyone else was okay that I forgot to take care of myself. On the outside, I put on a happy face, but on the inside, I was drowning. They say when you're on an airplane and there's an emergency, you must put on your own oxygen mask first, because if you pass out, you won't be able to help anyone else. I realized I had never put on my own mask, and I was about to pass out. The beginning of the road to healing was when I came to Mental Health America and the Ray of Hope. The more I learned about mental illness and suicide, the more it made me realize that what I had experienced was a disease and wasn't just a selfish choice. Just as I realized that no one chooses a disease of the body, no one chooses a disease of the mind. With this knowledge, I thought I had found clarity. I didn't realize that I was also about to find my voice. In an effort to spare other families the pain that mine went through, I began sharing my story with others, just as I'm sharing it with you today. I traveled to Harrisburg to be trained in QPR so that I could help others identify the warning signs of suicide, the warning signs that I had missed. Eventually, I began advocating more publicly to raise awareness about suicide. I tell my story. I tell my story again. I will continue to tell my story. I talk about the resources that currently exist and plead for funding to make additional resources a reality, particularly for children. However, my true healing came when I was able to confront the past. I was angry at my husband for leaving us. I still felt like I had blood on my hands, though. It took me a long time for my anger to subside and understand him and what he was going through, and to heal myself. Although what he did was something that left deep scars on my family, it wasn't necessarily because he didn't love me or my sons, but he was experiencing something bigger and more complex than himself. He was experiencing mental illness. He may not have wanted to die, but simply wanted the pain to end. Now, instead of seeing him as a person I'm angry with, I meet his memory with sympathy. I also realize this knowledge that I have gained is a gift I can share with others. I'm still haunted by the fact that I didn't recognize the warning signs when it came to my husband. The blood on my hands was never my guilt to carry, although many suicide loss survivors feel that way. The truth is, I didn't know he would react the way he did, and I didn't know the warning signs, which is why I'm now on a mission to educate everyone I know, because you never think it will be you until it is. It's been a long 4 years since that April night, and in that time, I've experienced hope and healing beyond my imagination. I realize despite what I've been through, I'm not a victim, but a warrior. I'm fighting back against this disease. I wear a semicolon tattooed on my wrist to remind me that my story will never be done being written. I'm fighting for those like my husband we've lost, those like my sons who are at risk, and those that don't know yet of the need to be fought for. And I just wanted to share a picture of my family that was taken it was just taken about a month before my husband died. And that's my two sons that were 2 and 4 when he died. So next I want to introduce Sue Soltis, who's also going to share her story of hope.
Wow, that was powerful. That was powerful. Rachel, thank you so much for sharing your story. And yeah, I almost don't have any words. So my name is Sue Soltis, and I am an instructional design specialist with the Westmoreland Intermediate Unit. I'm also a Ray of Hope task force member. I'm also a member of Step Up Westmoreland, and I'm a youth mental health first aid instructor. So I had to write this down because sometimes it's really hard to know what story to tell, because there's so many stories that we have of our loved one. As I was preparing for my talk today, I was thinking about the many stories that we tell other people. Depending on our audience, our stories might become more exaggerated and long. We might embellish some things. And sometimes our stories might be short and concise. I've told my story of loss at a support group, to a therapist, to a class of medical residents so they could learn about mental health signs and symptoms, to family and friends, and to participants at youth mental health first aid trainings that I have instructed. One thing I know for sure is that our stories change over time. Don't be surprised that as you go through the grief process, your story will also change. I learned about telling my story as a suicide loss survivor when I attended the Survivors of Suicide Bereavement Support Group that's offered by the Star Center of UPMC Western Psychiatric in Oakland, Pennsylvania. I attended this group about 3 months after my older sister Heidi died by suicide on June 18th of 2001. One goal of this 8-week group was to tell the story of your loved one, which could include any details you wanted to share about their life. And Dr. Sam talked about how important it is to tell your story and how to integrate it into the rest of your life. But how do you sum up a person's life in 15 to 20 minutes? What details do you share? What details do you leave out? Here is what I would say about my sister Heidi. I remember her as being so full of energy and the life of the party. She was my polka partner, and sometimes we would laugh so hard she would fall down and pee in her pants, which made us laugh all the harder. There were other times, though, when she couldn't face anyone or anything. She wouldn't get dressed. She wouldn't leave her house. She had been on medication for years for depression, and that very last year of her life, that medication stopped working for her. As her mental health started to decline, she felt the need to move back home with my parents so they could take care of her. She was 43 years old, and she had a 14-year-old son. She loved children and was devoted to her son, who lived with her part of the time and with his dad part of the time. As her suicidal thoughts grew, she decided to check herself into Western Psychiatric and stayed for a week. After she came home, I remember asking her if she was still thinking about suicide. Her answer was yes. I asked her what stopped her, and she said thoughts of her son. I believed that was enough to keep her alive and would serve as a protective factor, but I was wrong. When she died on June 18th, 19 years ago, my world changed forever. The older sister that I admired and looked up to was now gone. I couldn't stop her. I couldn't prevent it from happening. I felt numb, and I was in a fog for several months. I had a hard time remembering things at work, and my husband was not sure how to comfort me. Since I was working in the social services field at the time and knew the signs and symptoms of depression, I blamed myself for not doing something to save her. Attending this support group was extremely helpful for me. I was not alone in my grief or my journey to come to terms with her loss. Sharing my story and hearing the stories of others allowed me to move forward in the grief process. I learned to be gentle with myself and not judge how I was grieving or how long it was taking me to grieve. I realized that her death was not my fault and learned to stop blaming myself. About a year and a half after Heidi died, my mother Wilma died by suicide on February 11, 2003. She was 73, and we buried her on Valentine's Day. She lived with depression for many years, but was never treated for it. She would not see a therapist or take medication, and the loss of Heidi was too much for her to bear. My mother and I had a strained relationship for most of my life, and the very last conversation we had was a terrible, terrible argument. I was consumed with guilt and remorse about those last words I said to my mother. Thank goodness for the support group facilitator who met with me individually for several months to help me work through this second suicide loss in my family. As a way to heal from our losses, our family placed a memorial bench at a playground in Pittsburgh to remember Heidi. I had it engraved with a line of poetry she wrote as a teenager. Like a sparkle of sunshine, you glistened upon the earth. Behind the bench, we planted a memorial tree to remember my mother. I would much rather go to a playground to remember my mother and my sister instead of a cemetery. Now that many years have passed since their loss, the emotional pain is not as sharp, and I am able to think of happy memories of both of them. Recently, my sister's twin brother gave me some miniature tea sets she used to collect. I wanted to create a happy memory for someone else. So I sent those tea sets to a family member who has a little girl who will cherish and play with them. That makes me smile knowing that Heidi's tea sets are in good hands. I think of Heidi every time my 4-year-old grandson squeezes me tight and how much she would have loved him. And every time I cook something, and you need to know, I am not a very good cook. I feel like my mother is watching over me because she was an excellent cook. My mother was also a very direct person, and I have a lot of her traits, which I think now is a very good thing. Now that you've heard my story today and learned a little bit about my mother and my sister, I believe that telling stories about them is what keeps their memories alive. And Dr. Sam talked a lot about the memories and the stories that we share with others and how important they are. They are still a part of us. And I think it's important to talk about them whenever we need to. If you can't find someone to listen, keep looking. There's always someone who will listen to your story. By telling our story, we may be able to help someone else. And when we help others, we honor the memories of those we lost. I want to thank you for listening today. And now I'm going to turn it over to Rita McWilliams, who also has a story to share.
Is it? It isn't there, Sam.
We can see you, Rita. We can see
me?
you. Yes,
Okay.
and you know what? I forgot. Can I do one thing before you start? I forgot to put up a photo. So let me just. You can keep yourself visible, but I'm just gonna hopefully you can see my picture of my. I'm gonna move it. There we go. So that's all. I forgot to share the photo. So okay, on to you, Rita.
Okay, hopefully you can see me. Can you see me?
Yes.
Okay. Well, thank you, Sue. That was very touching and informative too, and I appreciate it. We all do. I'm going to start with a quote from Ecclesiastes. To everything, there is a season and a time for every purpose under heaven, a time to be born, a time to die, a time to weep, and a time to laugh, a time to mourn, and a time to dance, a time to heal. Suicide, such a tragic event. Could there be a purpose for this? Could any good thing come from it? Hi, I'm Rita McWilliams. Back in 2012, my husband Sam and I lost our daughter Carla to suicide. At that moment, our world fell apart. Life and meaning as we knew it came to an end. Carla had battled with suicide with attempts, hospitalizations, treatments, medications, therapy for 16 years, since she was 13. Now, most people with treatment recover. So I always had the hope that one day Carla would recover. Until one day I came home and from work and found her. She had lost the battle. She was 29. For those of you who have lost someone dear, my heart goes out to you, especially if it was recent. Right now, your world as you knew it has fallen apart, and you're in shock. Somehow you do the next thing. You call people, make all the phone calls, make the funeral arrangements, and you take it one day at a time, sometimes one moment at a time. I remember thinking at that time, how could all these people around me be just going to work and doing normal everyday things and laughing when such a tragedy has just happened? I'd wake up the next morning and think, oh, it was all a nightmare. It was just a bad dream. And then reality would set in, and I would wonder how I could go on. You may feel that way too. I'm here today to tell you that things do get better. But right now, what you're experiencing is normal. Be gentle with yourself. It's all right to cry. It's okay to be angry with the person. Allow yourself to grieve. After all, you love this person. Grieving the loss of someone by suicide is more difficult than ordinary grieving. Not only are you grieving, but you're questioning. How could they have done this? Why did they take their life? Why didn't I see it coming? Could I have prevented it? But did I do anything to cause it? What you're doing is trying to make sense of something that your mind can't comprehend. You can't wrap your mind around this. Before you know it, you're thinking of times past, things that you did wrong, and blaming yourself and maybe others for causing this. But that didn't really cause the suicide. Sure, you might have made some mistakes, but that's only human. We all do that. If there wasn't a suicide, you wouldn't even be thinking of these past events. I remember my nephew telling me that he was supposed to visit Carla that morning, and for some reason he didn't make it over, so he thought it was his fault. No, it wasn't his fault. My therapist told me to think of it like baking a cake from scratch and all the ingredients that go into it. In fact, she told me to envision, in fact, she drew a picture for me of a bowl because I'm very visual, and with a spoon, and stirring in all the ingredients that might have gone into this, that it wasn't just something I did. There might have been things I did wrong or forgot to do or didn't do and should have. But maybe my husband did some things. What about Carla? There were things she did or didn't do. That goes into the mix too. There were past attempts. That added to the problem. Hospitalizations. Treatments that failed. Treatments that were unavailable that she could have used, but they weren't there for her at the time. And then there was the secret ingredient. What was Carla thinking at that time? What was she feeling? We'll never know. Believe it or not, all of this, the grieving, the guilt, the anger, the questioning, it's actually a part of the healing process. You have to go through these things in order to get beyond them to the other side. But I want you to know this doesn't go on forever. Gradually, you get a little better. You don't cry as much. You're not constantly thinking about the suicide. And you start stepping out into life again. It's like a heavy cloud that was hanging over your head gradually starts lifting. And you find yourself laughing again and engaging with other people, family, friends, relatives, co-workers. Our theme for the virtual walk is Beyond the Clouds, Life Still Shines. Were you ever in a plane on a dark, overcast day, and suddenly on takeoff, the plane starts rising and goes up through the clouds, and suddenly you're above the clouds in this bright blue, shiny sky? Well, something like that, only it happens gradually over time. One day, I was visiting Carla's gravesite, and a class of preschoolers came along with their teacher. I'm not sure why they were walking through the cemetery. I guess it was close to a preschool. But anyway, I love little children because I used to teach first grade, so I was watching them. And they came right by while I was at the gravesite. And the teacher told them, shh, be quiet. Don't bother that lady up there. But one little boy in the back was looking at me. And suddenly he reached down and picked up a clover and handed it to me. And I thought, how beautiful. Life still shines. I think it was the spark of life that I needed at that time to start my healing. I still have that clover in my journal. Little by little, you start noticing the good things in life and becoming a part of it all again. Is there a purpose or something good that comes from all this? I'm not sure, but I do know that I'm more appreciative of life now, how delicate and beautiful it can be. I have a better understanding and empathy for people suffering, and I'm more grateful for the little things in life. I no longer think about the suicide and how Carla died. But instead, I'm grateful that I had my beautiful daughter. I had the chance to be a mother. I remember all the good moments we had together, her lovely smile, and how she laughed over crazy things. I used to feel when Carla first died that there was a hole in my heart that would never be filled. But now I realize what a gift she was, how much she enriched our lives. She was a part of my life, a part of me that will never go away. And now, when I think of her, I smile. And that is healing. This healing will come for you too, as you gradually accept it into your life. And I too have a picture I'd like to share with you. This is my daughter Carla and my husband Sam and me, of course. Thank you. And now we'll have some guest speakers. And our first speaker is Lee Wagner. Lee is the outreach specialist from the Department of Veterans Affairs. So I'm going to hand it over to you, Lee.
Thank you, Rita. And thank you, Sue, and thank you, Rachel. I was very honored and touched to have you all share your stories. And yeah, they're expertly titled Stories of Hope. I thank you very, very much for that. And I know everyone on the call appreciates it. So thank you. Thank you again for the introduction, Rita. Again, my name is Lee Wagner. I'm with the White Oak Vet Center. I'm an outreach specialist at the Vet Center. My main purpose and job is to connect with service members and their families to help them connect and get any type of supportive care they need. And specifically, I work with a lot of trauma veterans, combat, military, sexual trauma, things of those nature. And a large part of that work is in suicide prevention, suicide intervention, suicide skills training. So you're going to hear from myself, and then you're also going to hear from one of my close partners that I work with at the Pittsburgh, PA, Tony Rivera. So he'll be speaking in a few minutes as well. So Sue, if you wouldn't mind clicking the next slide for me. Thank you. So when we talk about veterans, we usually, unfortunately, have stereotypes of different conditions and different issues. Lots of things lead to someone making the decision to attempt suicide or to complete suicide or even have that conversation around taking their own life. And what we see a lot in the military, specific to maybe combat stressors or sexual trauma stressors, is post-traumatic stress disorder. And so what I like to do in opportunities like this is make sure that, there's a couple things we look at this way. PTSD isn't just for people in the military. Post-traumatic stress disorder is essentially a coping mechanism that comes from life-threatening events such as natural disasters, car accidents, combat, sexual assault. And these types of events, and I really enjoyed the baking reference. I have civilian friends that have taken their own lives. I have military friends I know have taken their own life. And lots of things go into that decision. And PTSD might be one of them. It might not be. Lifelong battles with depression might be something. So it's great to hear these three stories from Rachel, Sue, and Rita about their paths and their healing, because that's an important part of any type of experience. So this is our standard definition for post-traumatic stress disorder. And, it's just the definition of something that happens to people. So, excuse me. So I wouldn't, I don't put a lot of weight on it. I don't need to know if someone has PTSD if I'm going to help them. I just want to help them if they need help. So we don't get hung up when we're in regards to suicide intervention and suicide, awareness and prevention work. We don't get hung up on diagnosis and titles or whatnot. It's being present for the person, man, woman, whatever color, and whether they served or not doesn't matter either. So next slide there, Sue, thank you very much. So in the world of, and I'll speak specifically to veterans who have experienced some sort of combat trauma, what factors into a lot of things, and this might be a newer term, for some folks is a moral injury. And essentially, Dr. Jonathan Shea here has a fantastic book called Achilles in Vietnam. It's a betrayal of what's right, either by a person in a position of authority or by one's own self. What did I do? What would I be a part of? And other folks have expanded upon this definition by basically doing or being a part of or seeing things that are morally injurious. And by that we grow up in a society where we're taught right from wrong, do not kill, do not harm. And oftentimes in different lines of work, that happens, whether it's accidental or intentional. And that's where moral injury can come into. So when we talk to veterans who are struggling with existential questions around who they are and where do they go from here, a lot of times a moral injury or post-traumatic stress disorder after an event can factor into that. So just wanted to share these couple definitions because in my world of everyday work, these are things we deal with quite often. But again, we don't get hung up on titles or diagnoses. It's more about, what does that person need in that moment, meeting someone where they're at in that moment, and moving forward from there. Next slide, Sue. Thank you. And this is a great chart that I've seen in a couple different versions, but this is the most simple to help folks kind of understand. And I do get a lot of questions around, what is moral injury and what does it look like? And you can see very clearly there's a large overlap between symptoms of PTSD and symptoms of moral injury. So I'm a combat veteran. My brother was a combat veteran from Desert Storm. I was in Iraq in 2003. And in 2015, 13, 12 years after I came home, I participated in my own mental health counseling. And that's where I was able to kind of peel apart a little bit some of the traumatic events that I was exposed to and the morally injurious events that I experienced and see where there is overlap. And sometimes there is, and sometimes there isn't. But again, I'm using that reference to baking a cake, it kind of all goes into the bowl. And sometimes you kind of have to look at the recipe to see what was what and go from there. So this is kind of looks quick, both of the symptoms and things that come with PTSD we hear very often are depression, anxiety, insomnia, and self-medication, which is very, very, very common in both regards. So next slide, Sue. So we hear a lot about certain numbers of how many veterans die per day. I don't really get into the weeds with those types of numbers. I look at the statistics and I look at there are people dying by suicide, and we don't want that. It's great to bring awareness to the issue. And as you'll see in this chart here, people who serve in the military have suicide rates that are higher to civilians. So there are some causalities there that factor into this. And, I'm not going to talk about, again, certain numbers or day. It's just men and women who serve in uniform have a higher chance of taking their own life. And that's why I have a job, to put it that way. And that's why Tony has a job, who will be speaking next, because it's a lifestyle that is, I used to work at Duquesne University, and I would teach military competence to staff and faculty. And oftentimes, the faculty hadn't had any exposure to anyone in the military. And I would say things like, the military is a violent industry. Whether you're in the Air Force or in the Marines as an admin clerk, or you're in the Navy as a Navy SEAL or an Army Ranger, the whole industry is violent and can be destructive. So, and when you enter into the military at 18, 20 years old, your brain isn't fully developed, your personality isn't fully developed. So lots more things into that bowl that can lead to someone having suicidal ideations. And suicide and veterans taking their own life is a top priority at the VA. All VA staff are trained in suicide awareness, suicide intervention. Some of us are more active in that role or not. But when a veteran comes in contact with a VA employee, there's always a screening for suicidal ideations, as well as other types of trauma exposure, specifically military sexual trauma. So the one thing that I point out here is at the very bottom slide, women are roughly 2 times higher. A woman who serves in the military is twice as, the 2.2 times higher rate of suicide than their civilian counterpart. What's not on this slide is that female veterans are also the most likely or the least likely to identify as veterans. So if so you think about it this way, a woman who serves in the military is less likely to go out in the regular world and identify as a veteran. But at the same time, they're also have a higher chance for suicide. So because they don't identify as often, that could be why they're hot in suicide, right? Because they're not getting the supportive services or the connection to the supportive services as often as the traditional male veteran. So little things I just kind of wanted to point out. My encouragement to you before I turn it over to Tony here is to stick with the theme of the day here. Get people connected. Use the crisis line. Thank you, Sue. Use the crisis line. And that's crisis line. It's a little different. It could be any self-identified crisis for a veteran. And then you get connected up with someone like Mr. Tony Rivera, who will do its best to support that veteran, whatever they need. I'm local. I'm right here in White Oak. I cover Westmoreland County, Allegheny County, Somerset, Bedford. I've been on the task force for a little over a year and a half now, I believe. So I'm glad to do my part, and I appreciate a couple minutes of the time today. There's my contact information on the slide. If you are a veteran or a family of a veteran and you have cause for concern, or you just want to help that veteran get more connected or better connected to supportive services, absolutely give me a call or shoot me an email, and I'd be glad to help. So at this time, I will turn it over to my counterpart, Mr. Tony Rivera, and I thank you all very much for your time.
Well, thanks, Lee. I appreciate everything that you said there. And I'm a suicide prevention case manager with the VA Pittsburgh healthcare system. What happened? Oh, there we are. Okay. So hopefully I'm back again there. Sorry about the little glitch. As Lee said, when it comes to suicide, it is the #1 clinical priority of the VA. That was something that was stressed to me day one walking through the door. That was something that was stressed to me during my interview for the VA. And to be able to work with our veteran population on this very, very specific and very important issue is something that I don't take lightly, and none of us do. As we know, we're here because we know that the suicide is a public health crisis. It's one that doesn't get as much publicity as some other things. But when you look, and it's the 10th leading cause of death in the United States, the numbers are just staggering. We at the VA are here to make sure that all veterans receive the treatment and support that they need, regardless of whether they get to their care through our VA or not. And that's something I think that isn't often as readily broadcast as needs to be. We're here for all veterans. With our suicide prevention task force at VA Pittsburgh, we care we cover 13 different counties throughout southwestern Pennsylvania, the northern panhandle of West Virginia, and Ohio. As you can see on the screen there, we do have a clinic in Westmoreland County in Greensburg, which is local. And we want to make sure that everyone is aware that these services are there and are available. When it comes to veterans specifically, Lee was nice enough to have the Veterans Crisis Line up. That is such an important tool, an important lifeline for any veteran that is in crisis. As we know, when it comes to suicidality, it's not a one-size-fits-all. There are many, many reasons why people get to that point where they lose hope. And we need to be there and support whatever those reasons are. What we do with the Suicide Prevention Task Force within the VA is to do follow-ups for those calls that come through for the Veterans Crisis Line. So any veteran calling can receive a consult to whatever VA they happen to be living in, whatever area. So anyone calling in those 13 counties that we cover comes to our team. We follow up within 24 business hours to make sure that that veteran is linked to whatever services it is that they need. And if the veteran contacts the crisis line and they're in imminent risk, then the crisis line will go ahead and get 911 on the line, have them taken care of, and we follow up from there. Any veterans that are found to be at high risk for suicide, we do case manage and we do follow. Our job is to make sure that, again, that particular individual that put the uniform on and gave the oath is taken care of in their times of need, regardless of what the issues are. We also provide free suicide prevention training through the VA to anyone. We have materials and we do consultations for other counselors and therapists that may not have a lot of experience in dealing with veterans or veteran issues. Like Lee was saying, he did the same thing whenever he was at Duquesne. That's actually fairly common, has been my experience. So if you do have a veteran in your life that's is experiencing any kind of crisis, please make sure you reach out. Our big push is our hashtag is Be There, and we want to make sure that we're there for the people that are there for us. It's a very, very important topic and a very, very wonderful day to hear all the stories that everyone's said so far. So I appreciate the time that you've given me today. Thank you so much. And the information is on the screen. If there's any way that I can be of any service, whether it's trainings, materials, consultations, please don't hesitate to reach out. That's what we're here for. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tony, and thank you, Lee. That was wonderful information that you shared with everyone. We really appreciate you being with us today, participating, and giving that information. It's so important to think about veterans, people that are serving in our military, giving their lives for what, for you and me, for our freedoms. And that, it didn't occur to me what Lee had said about it being a violent occupation. I mean, that really highlights the service that these folks are giving us is tremendous, and we owe them so much, and so it's important to support them. I am back with you just briefly to talk about Step Up Westmoreland. As I mentioned a little bit ago, I am a member of Step Up Westmoreland, and Step Up is a caring network of students, therapists, educators, and parents united in prevention. So that's what Step Up stands for. To improve school safety and security, the Westmoreland County Office of Behavioral Health and Development Services, the Westmoreland Intermediate Unit where I work, and our 17 Westmoreland County school districts created a network that builds confidence, resilience, and optimism among our students, while also removing barriers to critically needed mental health intervention services. As you can see on the screen, Step Up Westmoreland is built upon the foundation that mental wellness is essential for the safety and success of all students. It provides an innovative network of support that brings a universal and unique approach to providing mental health resources to our schools, students, and their families. We meet virtually right now. We're meeting virtually once a month. I have the website on the screen, so if you're ever interested to learn more about Step Up Westmoreland, we have a lot of resources on our website. We have resources specifically for students, for therapists, educators, and parents around not just suicide, but also bullying, anger management. So we try to have a different theme each month of the resources that we share. Our next virtual meeting will be next Wednesday, September 16th, from 8:30 a.m. to 10 a.m. This is a free event. There is no registration required. The information should be posted on our Step Up Westmoreland website. Our impact speaker will be Dr. Annie White. She's a senior research associate at the Fred Rogers Center at St. Vincent College. We'll have a community spotlight speaker also of Dr. Jessica Black. She's a clinical psychologist at St. Vincent College. So again, I just wanted to share just a little bit about Step Up Westmoreland and what we're trying to do. We're trying to connect our communities, our parents, our schools, and our students. We know that students are having challenges right now, especially with COVID and isolation. It's so important to make sure that there's resources and help for everyone. And so our students are very vulnerable, and we want to make sure that we can reach out to them. So next, I'm going to hand it over to Heather, who's going to talk about some additional awesome resources for everyone.
Hi, everyone. Can you see me on the screen? Sue, can you hear and see me? Okay, great.
I can hear you now.
Hi, everyone. I know that we're getting to the close of our virtual walk today. And hold on one second. I need to turn my mic up. Okay, it is up the whole way. I apologize. Please let me know, anybody, if you still have trouble hearing me. Okay, great. So once again, my name is Heather McLean. I am the chair of the Ray of Hope and also the outreach coordinator at Mental Health America of Southwestern PA. I know we have a couple minutes here, so I'm going to get through these slides, but I will say before anything else, if you take anything from today, to know that there is help out there. There are people out there that really care, that want to help, that want to bring hope on purpose into your life if you do not have that. All these resources that I'm going to share today are a reflection of that. And I know my contact information is all over most of these slides. At any time you or anyone else needs information or help navigating the mental health system or resources out there, please do not hesitate to email me, call me, text me, reach out to me. I cannot say that enough. So with that, I will get started. Currently, I'm hosting 3 support groups once a week. The first support group that I'm going to let you know about, it is every Tuesday, and it is from 1 to 2. And this is a mental health virtual support group. And this is for anybody that's struggling with stress, anxiety, any type of mental health system. This is not a therapeutic group, but is really meant for social interaction. I started these groups back in late March, early April. We continue to have success. New people join in. We have a collective group that joins in every week, which is awesome. I cannot say enough about these groups and how encouraging they are and how resilient people are. And it's just always inspiring to me. So you can click. The next one is just a virtual support group, and it's for anybody. It's for anybody that's feeling anxious or lonely, just needs to have some communication with people. Maybe you're having a rough day. This is every Wednesday from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. And for any of these groups, you can reach out to me. Like I said, my contact information is on most of these slides to reach out to me. And I will remind you that this everything is recorded today from the walk, and you will get an email with the link to all these resources. So go ahead, Sue. This last group is every Friday. It is the LGBTQIA+ support group. This is a very important support group when it comes to suicide prevention and awareness, because what we know is that this community will complete suicide 7 times more than people not in this community. Their reason for hope and their reason for purpose is so important, that they feel cared for, that they feel loved, that they feel supported. So like I said, this group is every Friday from 6 to 7. And for all of these support groups, I pick a topic every week, and I bring up, there's a poem that I usually associate with it. There's different information that I bring forth. And then as a group, we all have a conversation. Go ahead, Sue. The next one is knowing your local resources, and this is important for everybody at any time. You do not know yourself or someone else that is going to have some struggles and need some mental health assistance. So the first one is the Westmoreland County Mobile Crisis Hotline, and they are around 24 hours a day. This is a group of people that will answer your call. When you call in, they can talk to you over the phone, just if you're having a really rough day or you're having a really rough day or struggling. And also they are able to provide a mobile service that they can come out to your home, or whether it's a school or work. I know that a lot of them personally, and they work tirelessly trying to meet the needs of the community. Do not hesitate to call them. They are around 24/7. The next one is the Excella Health Walk-in Crisis Center. This is across from the main entrance of Westmoreland Hospital. And their phone number is here. Their website is here that you can click on to find more information. This is open from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. that you can walk in. Anybody can walk in, just say you need to speak to somebody, and they have someone right there to speak with you. It is a great resource. We are actually very lucky in Westmoreland County to have this resource. There's only a couple of these throughout the state, and we were very fortunate that we have one in Westmoreland County. The Westmoreland County Behavioral Health and Developmental Services, this is the county umbrella for behavioral health services, and they do such a great job in collecting resources, connecting people with resources. If you ever need assistance in navigating the mental health system, please reach out to them. Also on their website, they have a list of outpatient providers and different services that they have for the community. They are also a very, very good resource. Go ahead, Sue. And then on to the suicide prevention resources. There are so many out there, and we really wanted to highlight the ones that we felt that could be the most helpful for you. So first is, of course, the Ray of Hope website. We have all different kinds of stuff on there, and the different events we're having. Sometimes we'll have articles linked to our newsletter. Then also, I feel the most important thing on our website is a connection page. If ever you need us, please reach out to us on our website, and we will respond to you as soon as we can. Then there's the statewide one is the Prevent Suicide PA. The Jason Foundation, it is an amazing youth suicide prevention program. Their website is offered. They have so many different things on their website. There's posters, there's magnets, different programs that they do, and they can send you all of that stuff for free, which is amazing. The Trevor Project, which is the LGBTQIA+ youth suicide prevention program. But also I will say it's not just for youth. They have a lot of information on there also for the adult population. And then AFSP, which is the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. They have so many resources regarding suicide prevention, grief and loss, booklets on warning signs, pretty much everything that you can think of regarding suicide prevention. The AFSP has it. Go ahead, Sue.
Hi, Heather. There was a question.
Yeah.
If you could, the letters LGBTQIA, could you say what that stands for?
I will try. It is lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer. I always get stuck at the I and the A. I apologize.
Heather, is it intersex and asexual?
It's intersex and ally. Intersex and ally.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Like I said, I always get stuck at the I and the A. But great question. Next slide. This is also some more suicide prevention resources. The Alliance of Hope, an amazing resource for lost survivors, and a lot of you that are on here today. Because the Ray of Hope is not having in person our lost group, this is a great resource for you to go on. They have different support groups online that you can reach out to support if you are a lost survivor. Then the Suicide Prevention Lifeline, which is a national hotline that's also 24/7. And then you can dial 1 when you call, it even says the dial 1 for veteran services for crisis. Great resource for anyone. The Allegheny County Warm Line, that is just if you are having a rough day and you need to talk to somebody. That is a great resource if you, if you don't have someone like a friend or family member that you can just reach out to. That's a great resource. The National Suicide Prevention Text Line, this is something new. Something very exciting. We know, especially with the younger population, they do a lot more texting than they do calling. And then also too, sometimes people don't feel comfortable calling and sharing their story or reaching out for help. So this is a very easy way. You can text PA to 741-741, and that will connect you with someone immediately. They will respond. The fire and EMS helpline, how much do we know that our first responders and all they do in their stressful jobs that they have? And even with fire, a lot of the firemen or firewomen, they are volunteer in our area. So not only are they usually doing a job, they're doing this is a volunteer job. So this, please keep track of this if you have a first responder and your family or a loved one that you can reach out and give them this information. And then the COP line, this is for law enforcement only. And we know how stressful law enforcement is. We know that suicides in law enforcement are very high and continue to increase. So to stress this number that any law enforcement officer can reach out to is a great resource. Go ahead, Sue. This is something we just developed this summer when COVID started. And this is a support line for first responders. This is in partnership with Westmoreland Community Action and the Westmoreland County SISM team, which the SISM team is a stress management team. So these calls are filtered through our crisis line, and then if a first responder would call and say that's why they're calling, that will be filtered to a team of people, and someone from that special team will respond to them that are used to dealing with first responders. If you can, please get this information out. It's something new, like I said, that we started, and we really want to keep this going to support our first responders. Go ahead, Sue. Join our team. You want to get involved. This is probably, and all I'm talking about, my favorite slide, because we have such a great group of people that come together as a team. There's people from the community, people that have had losses, people from the social service community. Our county behavioral health is so supportive and involved on our team, and it's such a great way to get involved and get connected, especially for resources, or if you're yourself or you know someone else that is struggling. This is a way to reach out. A number of people on our task force have had a suicide loss of their loved one, friend, family, and it's a great way to get connected. We have multiple groups. We have our overall task force that we sit, well, we're on Zoom right now, but we typically sit down quarterly and have a big meeting. Then we also have subcommittees. We have our walk committee, like we have today for this walk that we plan months and months in advance. And then we also have our steering committee, which is a group of people that oversee the Ray of Hope and all the financial decisions that we make, all the planning that we do, just to have that umbrella, that covering over the Ray of Hope. And then we have our marketing and outreach committee, and we have been able to do so much since we started this committee, and just to try to support people in the community, trying to get information out. If you are interested in being a part of any of those teams or just the overall task force, please reach out to our website. And then once again, my information and my contact information is there for you. And like I said, it's such a great group of people that I encourage anybody to join in. And we need you. We need your ideas. We need your support. We need your thoughts that you have, and even, like I said, struggling with a loss. It's just a great way to get connected. Go ahead, Sue. And this, I believe, is my last slide before thank you. So hang in there with me. We do offer a free training, and that is on suicide prevention and awareness. One of the trainings that we do is QPR, which is question, persuade, and refer. And this is for schools or any community organizations in Westmoreland County. We have gone out to multiple schools within the county. We've gone out to businesses. We've gone out to social service organizations. We've gone out to churches. We meet with anybody that wants to meet with us to learn more about suicide prevention and awareness. So the contact information, if you want your organization to have a training, you can once again reach out to us. And also to say that this training is for anyone. This training is specific to anybody that, and it's very simplistic. Teaches you the warning signs, teaches you how to talk to your loved one or someone you know that you feel that may be experiencing suicidal thoughts. And then you just encourage them to get help. And then the last one is to be able to refer them. There's not counseling involved, but there is a referral that you really want to stay with that person and get that person help. And once again, to know your resources to be able to do that. And that's really all that training is about. It is about an hour and a half, but we can tailor it to if you need it a little bit longer or if you need it a little bit shorter. Next slide, Sue. So with that, I am going to do thank yous, and then I'm going to turn it over to Rachel. I specifically wanted to thank our sponsors. We are so supported in Westmoreland County and so thankful for our sponsors. Everything that we do is based on the donations that we get in and all the awareness that we can spread. So I can't say enough how much we appreciate the sponsors that, that help us each and every year with our walk. The next person I wanted to thank was Sue. I know that Lori did also. What a great job you've done, Sue, and the time you've taken, and also the Westmoreland IU that has allowed us to use their platform for today. Thanking Lee and Tony from the Vet Center and VA Pittsburgh, that your information is so valuable and so important, and we know Westmoreland County has so many veterans, and we want to try as best as we can to take care of them. For the ladies that told your stories of hope, for Rachel, for Sue, and for Rita, all of you are so amazing and so inspiring and so touching. Thank you so much for doing that. And then also for Sam that did the survivors group, we are so thankful to have him, that he gives us his time and all of his knowledge and to share it with us in such a great way. So with that, I will send it over to Rachel. She is going to talk about the GiveSmart and how we have our virtual auction today with our baskets and gift cards.
Hey everyone, it's me again. I just wanted a few last minute details. If you have the link to, I'm going to throw this in the chat function. If you have a minute before the end of the day at 5 o'clock, we're closing our silent auction. But if you have a few minutes, head on over to the silent auction, check out the baskets and gift cards that we have available. These baskets and gift cards were donated to us, and they help us raise funds to be able to do the work that we do. We are entirely self-funded, so these donations help us to be able to go into the schools and to do the community events and do the life-saving work that we do. So go check out the items that we have, and remember that all of these, the event today will be available on Facebook Live. And for all of you that registered through GiveSmart, you'll be receiving a link to watch the video at a later date. So like I said, please go check out the items. I threw the link up in the chat feature, so you can have it there. The link is also rohwalk2020.givesmart.com. And under the silent auction or the items tab, you'll be able to find all of the items. And once again, those items will be up and live until 5 o'clock today when the auction will close. So you can go there, bid on the items, and you can also make donations for the Ray of Hope through that site. Thank you everyone so much for coming out today and supporting the Ray of Hope. And please continue to take the message of suicide awareness and prevention out into your daily life, because once again, you don't know whose life you'll be touching and who really needs this message. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day.